Hello Internet, I'm Josh from Lustria Lives and welcome to a 10-minute tier list. Today we will be discussing the current state of units in Seraphon as of early 2023. Quick note, since the two halves of our army play so differently and have such a large effect on our units, I've decided to split these tier lists and discuss Starborn and Coalesced separately. You can find the Starborn video linked below. So how I do these tier lists are, instead of the normal letter grades, we've got Sin, Great, Situational, Bad, and Bin. Sin tier means it's nearly auto-include. It's in almost every army you see in a tournament. Great, these are the units that are mainstays and you can always find a place for. Situational units are either picked for specific roles or as a part of a SKU list like those Ripperdactyl armies we've been seeing. Bad units are okay in friendly games, but they're either overpriced or trying to fill a niche that our army doesn't really need. And bin units, you're really only taking as a joke. They're straight outclassed by other units in the army. And as always, there's a disclaimer that the following is only my opinion. Results vary based on local meta and GHB, and other terms and conditions may apply, etc., etc. Now let's get into the video. So starting down at the bottom, as per usual, we have the Eternity Warden. He's 7 wounds of bodyguard versus 10 wounds of bodyguard from a regular source guard unit, but he's also more expensive and doesn't do as well in combat. Never take this guy. The Underworld's Warbrand, the Starblood Stalkers, is a skink priest and then a bunch of extra stuff you don't need for about 100 points. Don't take them. Scarvet on Cold One is just a buff platform for the same buff as the Scarvet on Carnosaur, but you're only saving 90 points and losing the entire Carnosaur. Old Blood on Foot gives you another source of all-out attack, and that's about it. Old Blood on Carnosaur, again, his buff isn't as useful as the Scarvet's. He does less damage in combat and only has the shooting attack to make up for it, but is 40 points more. Moving up to the bad tier, we have Pterodons. Now these are good in Starborn, but in Coalesced, they are Bravery 5, 6-up save. Anything even looks in their vague direction and they die. They're pretty much outclassed by your other chaff options, which they're 20 points more than. The only reason to take these would be if you think that 20 points is worth their Drop Rocks ability. Unfortunately, Source Warriors are also in this tier. They just don't do enough in combat. They barely hit with anything unless they have at least 15 models in the unit. They're too hard to keep above that 15 models. You can make an army of them work, but it requires like 2 units of 30, multiple support characters, and Emerald Life Swarm to keep bringing models back. If you can go all in on these, it can be okay, but it's just not, you're not getting enough out of it for how much you have to invest into it. Troglodon is trying to do 3 things at once, which would be okay as a generalist if he wasn't also one of our more expensive monsters. He's okay at shooting, okay at combat, and is a wizard, but his War Scroll spell is already covered by the Slann. So unless you're not taking a Slann, which you should never really be doing, he's just not worth his points. Regular Skinks, cheapest battle line, but they're only Bravery 5 in Coalesced. They do not benefit from Scaly Skin. They have shooting, but if you want cheap battle line, it's still actually better to just take 10 Source Warriors. Pterodon Chief, he's okay as a cheap hero carrying an artifact. He's pretty good with an Arcane Tome for a Slann to Arcane Vassal through, but you really have better options even for just the 80 points that he costs. Razordons, no Ren shooting, don't take it. Astrolith Bearer, this is going to be a kind of controversial placement here. He does still add 6-inch range to magic and +1 to cast, but his 6-up ward is kind of wasted when you're turning all of the terrain on your side of the table into mystical, so you should have a 6-up ward on most of your army anyway. And for 160 points, +1 to cast, when you can already get +2 on your important caster, is just not really worth it. The regular Stegodon, a little bit better in Thunder Lizard when it becomes battle line, but still 270 points for a 10 wound monster with a 4-up save is just asking a lot in the current metagame. Moving up to Situational, we have Source Sunblood, the only small source character that's actually worth it. which isn't really saying much, but he's really tanky. He actually does hit pretty hard for a foot character. You can beef him up pretty hard, and in the current season when you want a tanky Galatian champion, he can be pretty good. He also is our only source of +1 wound in the army, which is an amazing buff to give. Terra Wings are one of our better chaff options. It's pretty much between these and Ripperdactyls. These are better in Thunder Lizard when you have a lot of shooting, and you can take advantage of their scream to turn off all-out defense and inspiring presence, and then have your Bastiladons shoot whatever they screamed at. They are only 6 wounds, and for only 80 points, just to have that roll against Bravery, if you're in a low Bravery area or meta, it's not bad. Speaking of Ripperdactyls, the other 80-point chap option, these have 3 extra wounds than Terra Wings and a better armor save, and technically do more damage in combat, even though it's only like a wound or 2, so it doesn't really matter. Basically, if you are playing a lot of death armies, take these instead of Terra Wings as your chaff. Kroxigor can be pretty good as a flanking unit in Thunder Lizard because all of your monsters do have the skink keyword. They don't need to be near regular skinks. And then with the extra jaw attack from Coalesced on their vice-like jaws and tankiness from Scaly Skin, a unit of 6 of these can actually do some decent damage. Lord Croak, better in a Starborn army. You're not going all in on magic in Coalesced usually, but he's fun. Salamanders, still our only source of 2 rend. They get an extra jaw attack in combat to be even better there, but Bravery 5 kind of kills them. 2 Salamander units really don't work in Coalesced because a couple of skink handlers get killed and the Salamanders all run away. They're just kind of a real risky proposition to put 150 points into a 6 wound, 5 Bravery unit. Bastiladon with Arc of Sotek. Really solid tanky objective holder at 12 wounds with a 1-up armor save. It takes a while to get where it's going, but if it sits on an objective, it will pretty much hold it for a lot of the game. Source Guard. You're taking 1 unit for your Slann, or you're not taking any and you're hiding your Slann. You're never going more than that on these units, so that's why they end up in Situational. Skink Chief on Stegodon. At one point, the scariest unit in our book, still definitely the highest damaging, but the slow points creep has finally caught up with this guy, not to mention the damage output from other armies. He has no mortal wound protection, and a lot of armies are throwing mortal wounds out now, and the Engine of the Gods usually is better if you're trying to get an expensive hero monster in the army. So he's just kind of outclassed at this point. He's too many eggs in one basket. Skink Starseer and Skink Star Priest. We'll talk about these together because a lot of armies don't really benefit from both. Sometimes you're taking 2 Star Priests, sometimes you're taking a Starseer. Occasionally you'll see lists with 1 of each, but they kind of fill the same role as being the damage support for our Saurus units. So the Star Priest is better on units like Saurus Knights that have a lot of attacks and can throw out a lot of mortals. The Star Seer is better on slow-moving armies that could benefit from the extra rend, or in the case of like Saurus Warriors, from the increased tankiness. Pick your poison based on the rest of your list. Bastiladon with Arc of Sotek. Slowly been increasing in points, still great, especially in Thunder Lizard where it can double fire. Really only that great in Thunder Lizard where it can double fire. Skink Priest is mandatory for taking one of these because hitting on 4s sucks. Scarvet on Carnosaur, really good in Koatl's Claw with the Eviscerating Blade. Not as good in Thunder Lizard, but can be a pretty cheap 14 wound combat monster at only 200 points. Really solid damage, if a bit swingy. He'll draw a lot of fire. I really like this guy. Saurus Knights, absolutely incredible during the Bounty Hunters era. Not as good now, but still 36 attacks for only 110 points is great. They have no rend on anything, which really has them struggle into a lot of armies. If you're going hard on these, I would definitely include Skink Star Priests to give them the mortal wounds. Slower than most cavalry, which is really unfortunate, but cheap, good as 5-man screen units, good as 10-man damage units. All around, probably our best battle line in Coalesced. Chameleon Skink / Hunters of Huanchi, much better than they are in Starborn, since we don't have a lot of mobility. Having 1 or 2 units of these deep striking in the back to shoot off an important support hero, or just grab objectives and be annoying. Absolutely incredible. Hunters of Wanchi are obviously better than the Chameleon Skinks, but we're not sure if that War Scroll is a straight replacement or not yet, so I'm talking about them kind of together. All of my Coalesced lists have either 1 or 2 units of these guys. Skink Priest, pretty much mandatory in Thunder Lizard even after all of his point increases. Usually you don't see him in Koatl's Claw lists, but put his buffs on a Bastiladon or a Stegodon Skink Chief or even the Engine of the Gods, and it does work. He's 3 really good buffs on a small hero body in the current battle or GHB. He can't be shot, so yeah, really solid. In the Sin tier, we have the Slann Starmaster. You're putting him in your army. He's 3 casts, 3 denies, unlimited range. Comet Call's incredible. He's a native +1 to cast. He's just so good, even at his current points. And then finally, my opinion, the best unit in the book, still after all of its points increases, Engine of the Gods, especially in Coalesced, so it's actually tanky with scaly skin. 12 or 14 wounds. It is a priest. It is a combat monster. It has access to the best artifacts. It has the skink keyword. It can summon, which you don't normally have in Coalesced. It does mortal wounds. It's just incredible. Alright, so that's going through the whole Coalesced tier list. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you disagree with anything, but otherwise, thanks for watching.